Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line, your concierge for your questions about the price of this or any Watchbox watch. Email me for pricing, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we're discussing a 2022 Grand Seiko online boutique exclusive. This from the new Evo 9 collection, Evolution 9. This is the Grand Seiko High Beat Automatic SLGH011 Green Birch. Like the white birch, powered by the new 9SA5 caliber, part of the Evo 9 collection, and designed to evoke the landscape, in this case the summer verdure of Japan. This is what the white birch looks like during the sunny seasons. Now, taking a quick look at the case, in stainless steel, 40 millimeters in diameter, it's 12.1 millimeters thick. Lug-to-lug, if we're just measuring the case, it's 46.8 millimeters across the wrist, 50.3 millimeters from end link to end link, and it has a nice modern 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs, which is broader than we've seen on previous Grand Seiko watches, giving the watch a more modern appearance on the wrist. And my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference. I've got enough clearance on each side. Pull the sleeve back, you can see I've got plenty of clearance, but I would recommend wearing this watch on a wrist no smaller than 15 centimeters circumference because the end link to end link distance is substantial. That said, it is quite low slung, and with a sloped case flank, you can see how easily it'll slide underneath a dress cuff. It is a sports watch though, make no mistake. I describe it as an all-arounder, but there's a lot of overtly sporty features here. One of them is the bracelet, which is now more robust than in the past. It has less play, it feels weightier, more substantial. Previously, I would have said that the one glaring difference between Rolex and Grand Seiko, entirely to Rolex's advantage, was the quality of Rolex bracelets compared to the equivalent from Grand Seiko. This closes that gap substantially. Done not completely, but substantially, to the point where I don't care anymore about the difference in quality between a Grand Seiko steel bracelet and a Rolex rival. You can see it's quite sporty with these rectangular cross-section profiles, polished on the flanks, satin on the top. We have staggered link alignment as well as staggered link size. We have removable links fixed by screws, and you can see we have several intermediate sized links in there for fine-tuning the fit. We have a thick gauge steel single fold deployant clasp externally, a combination of media blasting within the logo, polishing, and then satination. It's a twin trigger release, so you have to press both triggers to open it up. It is quite solid. It's not going to open accidentally. The crown is a screw down crown. The watch is 100 meters water resistant. The case, a blend of a couple of different threads of Grand Seiko history. You can see some of the arcing profile of the 9S, as well as the geometric faceting of the 44GS. This is a lot of heritage design, but it is new at the same time because in total, these elements have never all come together. This is the new Evolution 9 case shape. We have a Grand Seiko logo on the crown. We have a bezel that is a very narrow and inward stepped vertical section. So you can see it's inboard stepped to create the impression of a thinner watch. There's that little vertical lip, then a polished conical profile. Then we have a narrow vertically satinated top to the bezel. The dial features the same multi-step process as used for the well-loved white birch dial, and you can see the texture is exactly the same, but this one is green. This is how the white birch tree looks in the summer. It's not a conventional green though. It has some color gradients to it. As you can see, the rippling profile creates lighter and darker shades, and there's sort of an undertone of blue to this particular green. I would say from certain angles it transitions between forest green and teal, so it's quite dynamic, but equally important, it doesn't look like any existing Grand Seiko green dial. There are many of them at this point. This one is unique. Taking a look at the dial furniture, the logo, the frame for the date, the hands, and the indices, these are all micro-faceted, and you can see contrast between polished and satinated facets. These components are made by hand by artisans who specialize in micromechanics, and they use diamond tip milling tools. They do nothing but make these parts all day long. And this is where Grand Seiko really pulls ahead of Rolex in dial quality, because not only are these pieces exquisitely handmade, but they're placed by hand, and Rolex just does not have handmade dials in its catalog. Now, the seconds hand is super smooth. You might think at first glance that it is a spring drive, but in fact, this is high beat, so 36,000 vibrations per hour. It's 10 beats per second like a Zenith El Primero, which creates a double step cadence when you listen to the watch, but also a a smoother sweep to the seconds hand. We're going to show you some of the subsidiary setting modes. Withdraw the crown, hacking seconds. By the way, there's almost no rock or movement to the crown when fully withdrawn. That's in contrast to a lot of wobbly weeble-like Swiss crowns that won't feel like they're going to come off when they're withdrawn. This one's very solid. We also have a quick set system for the date. Screw it all back down. Again, 100 meters water resistant. The high beat, previously 55 hours of power reserve, is now 80 hours, and the high beat, as ever, allowing the watch to be potentially more shock tolerant and more accurate. You can see changes afoot here. First, the movement's a lot bigger, and the finish is far more attractive than on previous Grand Seiko 9S calibers, which were always technically proficient, but a little bit undersized and unattractive to look at. This breaks that mold. It's now big and beautiful. You can also see not one, but two mainspring barrels. That's how Grand Seiko achieves that extra power reserve compared to the older movement. But what they've also done is they've reduced the thickness of the movement by 15%, which is an impressive trick. It is more shock tolerant, not just due to its high beat, but due to a new feature, the combination of a full dual anchored balance bridge with a free sprung balance. And it also has a overcoil hairspring. Not only is the hairspring made by Grand Seiko, but the curve itself is applied by hand to a pattern created by Grand Seiko. So they made the alloy, crafted the spiral, their artisan then shaped it by hand using a profile that is not a Breguet or a Phillips or any prior overcoil, but one of their own design. And it features a dual impulse escapement that is probably the closest thing to an Omega coaxial, not made by Omega, the late Daniels, or his protege Roger Smith. It is a dual impulse escapement with tangential contact between impulsing and impulsed surfaces. So it reduces friction, reduces maintenance requirements, and improves power reserve. It has an indirect impulse and a direct impulse stroke. It's a very unusual system that's produced using micromechanical technologies and extremely efficient. You can see nicely decorated, but also the architecture itself is quite attractive, from the double barrel bridge to the center bridge for the winding system right down to the full bridge for the escapement. Everything about this 47 jewel movement is really attractive. And you will note it's been adjusted in 6 positions, one more than the chronometer standard of 5 positions. And this watch is rated accurate, according to in-house testing, to no worse than -3 5 seconds gained per day. Very impressive stuff. This is one of the most appealing Grand Seiko watches I've encountered. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.